Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to explore something we don't like to talk about out loud. How much time we really have left after 70. Picture this. It's quiet. The hallway clock is ticking. Your slippers are warm, and you're standing in front of the mirror. You look older, sure, but alive. You're still breathing, still here. But for how long? Statistically, you probably won't survive the next 20 years. That's not fear-mongering, that's actuarial data. And yet, for some people, 70 isn't the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the next beginning. That second wind, that bonus round, and that's what we're here to talk about. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. I remember my 70th birthday vividly, not because of some grand party or emotional toast, but because I stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering if I was past my expiration date. Sounds dramatic, but that number 70 hits different. It's like a finish line you weren't trying to cross. Suddenly, everything feels more fragile, more ... final . But then I started reading about centenarians, about people who didn't just survive into their 90s, they thrived. One woman in Okinawa was still harvesting seaweed at 102. A man in Italy rode his bike to the cafe every morning at 97. I started wondering, what did they know that I didn't? The first thing I learned was this. Reaching 70 isn't the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the filter. From this point on, your habits either speed up your decline or slow it to a crawl. Every little choice matters. The game doesn't end, it just plays by new rules. Your cells, they're still listening. Your heart, still learning. Even your bones, bless their brittle souls, still respond to how you live. Turns out, we don't just wear down with age, we give up. That's the bigger problem. One afternoon, I saw an old man in the park, looked 85, easy doing Tai Chi, like a feather caught in the breeze. Fluid, balanced, almost serene. I asked him how old he was. He said, 88. But I only count the mornings I wake up with curiosity. I didn't know if that was poetic or delusional, but either way, I liked it. Scientifically speaking, the odds aren't fantastic. The average life expectancy for someone who reaches 70 in the US is about 85. But that's just an average. And averages include people who gave up, who isolated, who didn't adapt. The outliers, the people who go beyond 90, even 100, they're not freaks of nature. They're intentional. There's an academic debate about whether genetics or lifestyle plays the bigger role after 70. Some argue your DNA sets your ceiling. Others say your habits hammer in the nails. Personally, I think genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger, or doesn't. I started making small changes. Nothing dramatic. I didn't go vegan or start running marathons. I just started walking more, laughing more, saying no to people who drained me, and yes to moments that felt good, even if they looked silly like dancing in socks. On the kitchen tile, a fun, totally random fact for you. Jellyfish don't technically die of old age. They either get eaten or break apart. Some species can even reverse aging. I told my doctor that, hoping he'd be impressed. He said, "You're not a jellyfish, Harold." Fair, but I still believe we can bend time a little. Not in the science fiction way, but in the way we show up for it. Aging isn't a slow decline, it's an active process, a skill, even one we can get better at. I began treating 70 as my second adolescence. Everything felt a little weird, a little unfamiliar, and a little magical if I let it. The key was not letting the mirror do all the talking. Instead, I listened to the way my body responded to a walk after dinner, the way I still felt useful when I helped a neighbor, the way I slept better when I let go of old grudges. So reaching 70 used to scare me, but now I see it differently. It's not the edge of a cliff. It's the first step onto a path most people are too afraid to walk, but not us. We're walking it, slowly, thoughtfully, and with our eyes wide open. I used to think the secret to a long life was locked away in some blue zone in Italy or a monk's cave in Tibet. Turns out, the truth is closer than that, hidden in the tiny decisions you make every day after 70. And science agrees. It's not one big thing that predicts longevity. It's hundreds of small, quiet things you barely notice. But they add up, like interest in a savings account, except the currency is time. I started tracking the people around me who were aging well. I don't mean the ones who just looked young. We all know someone with a suspiciously smooth forehead, unhealthy addiction to kale. No, I mean the ones who still had that spark, that mental clarity, that subtle, calm energy that says, I'm not just here, I'm alive. And when I asked them what they did differently, their answers weren't fancy. One woman, 76, told me she started each day with a glass of water and 10 minutes of stretching. Another swore by gardening, said digging her hands in the dirt gave her purpose. A man I met at a senior center said he played chess online with a guy in Singapore every Thursday. Keeps me humble, he joked. The patterns were there. Sleep well, move often, eat foods your great-grandmother would recognize. Laugh, stretch, breathe, repeat. Scientists have a term for this, predictive biomarkers. Basically, measurable indicators in your body that tell doctors whether you're aging well or just aging. Things like blood pressure, resting heart rate, grip strength, waist circumference, inflammation levels. Your body, like an honest friend, tells on you every single day. But the beauty is, you can influence these numbers. I've seen it myself. My resting heart rate used to hover around 85, a little high, a little restless. I cut back on caffeine, started doing breathing exercises before bed, and now it's closer to 70. Not Olympic athlete, impressive, but it's a win in my book. Here's a strange, but surprisingly delightful fact. Naked mole rats don't seem to age like we do. Their risk of dying doesn't increase as they get older. It stays the same. Scientists are baffled. I just admire their commitment. Plus, they live in total darkness and rarely fight. Maybe that's the secret. There's a bit of an academic tug-of-war about what matters more after 70. Physical activity or mental stimulation. Some argue cardio is king. Others say crossword puzzles are the best medicine. Personally, I think it's a false choice. Why not both? I walk while listening to philosophy podcasts. That way, even if my knees go, I'll still sound wise while complaining about them. Back to daily habits. One thing I started doing was replacing my afternoon snack with an actual walk. Not a fast one, just a slow, scenic loop round the block. I pass the same houses, wave at the same neighbors, smell the same freshly mowed grass. It's become a kind of ritual, a reminder that I'm still in motion. Another one, laughing. Not the kind you force at a sitcom rerun, but real laughter. The kind that bubbles up during a phone call with an old friend. Or when your grandkid says something wildly inappropriate and you're too shocked to correct them. That's the kind of thing that keeps your spirit elastic. What I've learned is that predicting a long life isn't about guessing, it's about observing. Your body leaves clues, your moods leave patterns, your habits tell the story. So I started keeping a little journal. Nothing deep, just notes. Slept 7 hours, took stairs instead of elevator, laughed at the dog falling off the couch. It sounds silly, but over time, it paints a picture of who I am and who I'm becoming. If you're still reading or listening to this in the dark, half asleep, fan humming, let me whisper something to you. You're not at the mercy of fate. You can tip the odds, add minutes, days, maybe years, one walk, one choice, one deep breath at a time. So, if you're over 70 and wondering what's next, start with this. Notice your life. Tune into it. Treat your body like an old, wise friend you're trying to impress, because it is. And if you're still here tomorrow, make it count. The first time I noticed my muscles weren't what they used to be. I was trying to open a stubborn jar of marinara sauce. The jar won. I stood there in my kitchen, arms trembling like wet noodles, and thought, so this is how it starts. I used to think muscle was just for show. You know, biceps for beach photos, legs for soccer games, a strong core for looking vaguely heroic while raking leaves. But after 70, muscle becomes something else entirely. It becomes your lifeline. There's this scientific phrase that stuck with me, sarcopenia. It sounds like an exotic flower, but it's really the gradual loss of muscle mass as we age. Left unchecked, it turns vibrant, independent people into fragile, fall-prone ghosts of themselves. Yeah, dramatic, but also accurate. The thing is, we lose muscle fast after 70. Like up to 1% every year more if you're inactive. That may not sound like much, but it adds up. Before you know it, the stairs feel steeper, the suitcase feels heavier, and getting out of a chair feels like a gym class exam. I didn't want to end up there, so I started small. At first, I'd stand up from the couch without using my hands. That was my workout. Then I added wall push-ups 10 a day, right before brushing my teeth. I looked ridiculous, but it was a start. Slowly, I added more, light weights, squats, while waiting for the kettle to boil, toe raises during commercials. I built a workout routine by accident, and you know what? Things started changing. I could carry grocery bags again without stopping halfway up the driveway. I could open that cursed marinara jar without summoning the neighbor's teenage son. It felt like I was reclaiming something, not just strength, but dignity. I read somewhere that grip strength is a better predictor of longevity than blood pressure. Apparently, the strength in your hands reflects the strength of your whole system. So I bought one of those grip trainers, the kind that looks like it belongs in a fidget toy island. Now I use it while watching TV, if nothing else. I'll die with the hands of a lumberjack. There's some academic debate about what type of training is best for older adults. Resistance, balance, functional movement. Honestly, I say, just move. Use your muscles, and they'll stick around. Ignore them, and they'll leave without a goodbye. Here's a weird side note. Aunts can lift 50 times their body weight. 50. I told that to my grandson, and now he calls me Grandpa Aunt. It's silly, but I kind of love it. Because I'm working on becoming strong again. Not strong like a bodybuilder, strong like someone who can still live on their own terms. A friend of mine, 78, told me his rule: never sit down if you can stand, never stand if you can walk, never walk if you can dance. I rolled my eyes at first, but the man has calves like a Greek statue. He's doing something right. I also started paying attention to balance, not just the physical kind, but the emotional kind too. Turns out those little exercises where you stand on one leg while brushing your teeth, they work, and they're harder than they sound, especially after wine. And then there was the moment that really drove it home. I was at a family picnic, and my great-niece ran up and shouted, "Catch me." Without thinking, I scooped her up, spun her around, and didn't fall over. Everyone clapped. My back didn't spasm. My knees didn't wobble. I was just strong enough that, right there, is the secret. After 70, strength isn't about looking fit. It's about being able to get up, able to move, able to live fully and freely, without relying on others for every little thing. So if you're still holding yourself up, climbing stairs, opening jars, lifting grandkids, don't take it for granted. That's strength. It's your survival strategy. And if you've lost some, you can get it back. I promise. Because aging doesn't take your muscles away. Inactivity does. And the good news is, that part's up to you. I never thought something as ordinary as walking could predict how long I might live. But one day, my doctor casually asked me, "How fast do you walk these days?" I thought he was just making conversation, and he scribbled something down in my chart and muttered, "That's good. That's really good." Turns out, there's a real science behind walking speed. They even have a name for it: gait velocity, which sounds like something out of a spy movie. But in reality, it's just how fast you walk under normal circumstances. No speed walking, no pretending you're chasing a bus. Just your natural, unthinking pace. The shocking part? Researchers say that gait speed might predict survival better than even your age or blood pressure. If you walk slowly, especially under 0.8 meters per second, which, don't worry, I didn't measure either, your risk of dying sooner increases significantly. Basically, if you're still strolling like you've got somewhere to be, your body is silently shouting, "I've still got it." And honestly, I believe it. Because I can feel it. On days when I'm sluggish, when I shuffle around the house like a forgotten Roomba, I feel older, slower. But when I'm out walking at a good clip, maybe down to the post office or around the block, I feel alert, alive, almost ... spry ... Of course, not every day is a brisk one. Some mornings, my knees pop like bubble wrap, and my hips sound like two bricks grinding together. But even then, I walk. I don't always go far, but I go forward. That to me is the point. Here's a quirky little tidbit. Penguins have a highly efficient gait. They waddle, yes, but with minimal energy loss. Basically, they've mastered the art of moving efficiently if they look like they're late to a bird-only comedy club. I think about that sometimes when I'm trudging through the grocery store. I may not be fast, but maybe I'm efficient. There's a bit of debate in the medical world about what slow walking really means. Some experts argue it's just a symptom of other health problems: weakness, heart issues, cognitive decline. Others believe it's a standalone marker. But most agree, walking speed is worth paying attention to. So I started timing myself. Nothing official, just little mental notes. How long does it take me to walk to the corner store or up the stairs? I even played a little game where I tried to pass the same jogger twice during his cool-down lap. Did I win? Once. He was tying his shoe. But walking speed isn't just physical, it's mental too. When I'm down, I walk slower. When I'm engaged, energized, even a little curious, my steps naturally quicken. It's like my brain tells my feet, we've got places to be. And my feet listen. One day, during a particularly energetic walk, I passed a group of teenagers on scooters. One of them actually said, "Dang, Grandpa's got wheels." I didn't know whether to laugh or flex, so I did both. That moment stayed with me not because I needed the compliment, but because it reminded me how walking well at my age surprises people. And that surprise, that's power. That's proof that I'm still here, still doing things my body was designed to do. So I keep moving. I don't think of walking as exercise. I think of it as staying in the game. The rhythm of my steps, the sway of my arms, the air in my lungs. It's not just movement, it's defiance. If you're over 70 and still walking with purpose, even if it's just to the mailbox, you're winning. And if you're not, start small, 10 steps, then 20, then down the driveway. Your pace might be slow at first, but your body will remember. Because in this life, movement is momentum, and momentum is survival. So walk like you still mean it, because you do. The scariest moment wasn't when I misplaced my keys. That happens. No, the real gut punch came when I walked into the kitchen and forgot why I was there. Just blank. Standing in the doorway like a confused extra in my own life. That's when it hit me. Is this how it starts? Is this the first flicker of something darker? At 70 plus, you start paying closer attention to those mental lapses. A forgotten name here, a scrambled memory there. Are they just normal signs of aging, or are they early warning flares? I asked my doctor. He shrugged and said, "It's complicated." Thanks, doc. But he's not wrong. Brain health after 70 is a complex, tangled mess of science, sleep, nutrition, hormones, and mental stimulation. And according to the research, it's not just about memory. It's about mental span, how long your brain can focus, how well it can pivot, how resilient it is to stress. In a way, your mental flexibility is just as important as your memory banks. I decided to treat my brain like a garden. If I wanted flowers in the spring, I had to pull weeds in the fall. So I started pulling dot first up. The TV, not all of it, just the brain sludge stuff. I replaced a couple hours of reruns with audiobooks. Then I downloaded an app that teaches you random trivia. I am now proud to say I know way too much about narwhals and the history of forks. I also started writing more nothing fancy. Just a couple lines a day. What I saw, what I felt, what annoyed me. It sounds minor, but the act of putting thoughts into words gave my mind a workout. Like stretching muscles I didn't know I still had. And here's something strange. I started doing puzzles again. Not the jigsaw kind though, those are fun, but the ones with numbers and logic. Sudoku, crosswords, even those old school which shape comes next. Brent teasers. It felt childish at first, but I could feel my focus sharpening. Slowly, my brain stopped drifting so much. I could sit longer, think clearer. Now, there's an academic debate about whether these exercises really prevent dementia or just delay it. But honestly, I don't care. If keeping my mind busy buys me one more year of remembering my kids' birthdays, I'll take it. And speaking of kids, interacting with younger people helped in ways I didn't expect. Their slang, their stories, Even their rapid-fire texts, they forced my brain to keep up. I had to listen closely, decode faster, respond smarter. It wasn't always graceful. I once replied LOL to a serious message by accident. Sorry, Emily, but these conversations stretched me. They reminded me that my mind isn't a dusty attic, it's still a living space. Maybe it creaks, maybe the lights flicker sometimes, but it's still home. A fun, off-topic fact. Crows can remember human faces and even hold grudges. Their brains, while tiny, are wired for recognition and emotion. I think of that whenever someone tries to downplay memory loss in older adults. If a crow can keep track of people, so can I. Probably, and let's not forget mood. Mood is sneaky. Depression in older adults often disguises itself as forgetfulness, fatigue, or irritability. For a while, I was snapping at the toaster like it had a vendetta. Turns out, I just needed more sunlight and actual conversations with humans. I started keeping a little checklist. Did I laugh today? Did I read something new? Did I solve something, even if it was just figuring out which remote turned on the stereo? If I checked off at least 2, I called it a clear brain day. So if you're in your 70s and still remembering names, following conversations, and keeping track of birthdays, you're doing better than you think. And even if your mind wanders now and then, guide it home, feed it curiosity, let it stretch, strain, explore, because a brain in motion, much like a body in motion, tends to stay in motion, and I plan to keep mine moving for as long as possible. There was a stretch, maybe 6 months or so, where I wasn't sleeping well. I'd wake up around 2 a.m., stare at the ceiling like it owed me answers, and wonder if this was just what old age felt like. Quiet, sleepless, and vaguely itchy for no reason. Everyone warned me that sleep gets worse with age, but no one told me how much it would affect everything else. My memory, fuzzier. My balance, a little wobbly. My mood. Let's just say the toaster wasn't the only thing I was snapping at. So I started digging into the science of sleep after 70, and what I learned changed everything. See, it turns out deep sleep is the real fountain of youth. That rich, slow-wave sleep, the kind where you wake up feeling like your body hit the reset button, that's the sleep that matters most. And it's also the kind we start losing after 65. Not fair, right? But here's the kicker. Poor sleep doesn't just make you groggy. It accelerates aging. It affects your immune system, your cardiovascular health, even your risk of Alzheimer's. The brain literally cleans itself while you sleep. That's not poetic, it's biology. It's like your brain hires a tiny night janitor to mop up all the gunk, and if you don't sleep deeply, the janitor goes on strike. So I started taking sleep seriously. Not just going to bed early, but actually preparing for it. I made my bedroom colder. I ditched the late night news. I stopped drinking tea after 4 p.m., which, yes, broke my heart. And most importantly, I created a wind-down ritual. Dim lights, soft music, and some light stretching. It felt silly at first, like I was tucking in a fussy toddler version of myself. But it worked. Now I sleep better. Not perfectly, but better. And the ripple effects, amazing. I remember things more clearly. My knees complain less. I even stopped yelling at the blender. Some scientists argue it's not the length of sleep that matters most. Sleep's the quality. I agree. I used to get 9 hours and still feel like I'd been hit by a bus. Now, 7 hours of solid, uninterrupted sleep makes me feel practically bionic. Okay, maybe not bionic, but at least less grumpy. Here's a weird off-topic gem. Giraffes only sleep about 4.6 hours a day, sometimes standing up, out no clue. But I thought about them during one of those sleepless nights and muttered "Shof." Then I went back to staring at the ceiling. There's something beautifully ironic about sleep, though. You have to let go in order to gain it. You have to soften your grip on the day, on your worries, on the stuff you didn't get done. And that's hard, especially for people like me who grew up thinking sleep was a luxury, not a necessity. But aging teaches you that rest is not weakness, it's wisdom. You don't need to grind yourself into the ground to prove you're still alive. Sometimes, proving you're still alive means prioritizing the stuff that keeps you here longer. I once read a quote, "Don't sacrifice sleep for a life. You won't be awake enough to enjoy." It hit me hard. So now I treat my sleep like a sacred appointment with myself. And if someone asks me to do something late at night, I politely decline. If it's not worth disrupting my REM cycle, it can wait. And you know what else helped? Sunlight. I started stepping outside first thing in the morning, even if it was just to wave at a squirrel or yell at the recycling bin. The morning light resets your internal clock, tells your body when to wake and, eventually, when to sleep. It's like nature's alarm system. Free, reliable, and Squirrel Dash approved. So, if you're in your 70s or older and you're still able to fall asleep naturally, stay asleep deeply, and wake up without feeling like you wrestled a ghost all night, then you're ahead of the curve. Really, because sleep isn't just the reward for a good day. It's the preparation for another one. A longer one, a better one. So tonight, when this video ends, I hope you drift off easier than I did back then. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and let your brain's janitor get to work. You'll thank him in the morning. Let me tell you something nobody warned me about before I turned 70. Loneliness hits different. It's not loud. It doesn't storm in through the front door. It just quietly settles in, like dust on the bookshelves you stopped noticing. People stop calling as much. Invitations slow down. The house feels bigger. Time feels longer. Even the silence seems to echo a little louder. But here's the twist, and science backs this up: loneliness might be more dangerous than obesity or smoking. And the older you get, the deadlier it becomes. I didn't want to believe that at first. I figured I was just being nostalgic. But one morning, I realized I hadn't spoken to another person in 3 days. Not even a hi to the mailman. It spooked me. That's when I made a rule for myself. One real human connection a day. Didn't have to be long. Didn't even have to be deep. Just a genuine moment. A phone call. A conversation at the store. Even a joke with the neighbor about how our mailboxes are both leaning like they're tired of this world. And something started shifting. Human connection real. Soul-nourishing connection isn't just about fun or comfort. It's protective. It regulates your blood pressure, lowers stress hormones, boosts immune function. In other words, love makes you live longer. Who knew? Well, apparently science knew. There's an entire field of study around social vitality. And it turns out the most long-lived people on Earth all have one thing in common. They belong to something. A community, a purpose, a rhythm. They're not just surviving. Surrounded. One of the quirkiest, most delightful facts I came across. In Sardinia, the men live nearly as long as the women, and that's rare. Why? Because their daily lives involve talking, laughing, drinking wine with friends. In short, they're never alone with their thoughts for too long. There's always someone nearby to remind them they matter. It got me thinking, maybe the fountain of Youth isn't a thing. Maybe it's a feeling. The feeling of being seen, of being needed, of being missed when you're not around. So I joined a walking group. Not because I wanted to walk faster, we've covered that, but because I wanted to hear stories. I met people who'd survived cancer, lost spouses, traveled the world, and still showed up every Tuesday in neon sneakers and windbreakers that hadn't been cool since the 80s, and we laughed a lot. One woman, Betty, told me she thinks laughter is like exercise for your lungs. I told her she was full of it. Then I Googled it. She was right. Betty's always right. There's some academic fussing over what's more important, social quantity or social quality. Is it better to have lots of acquaintances or a few deeply connected friends? I say, take whatever you can get. Some days, I talk deeply with an old friend. Other days, I banter with the guy who restocks the bananas at the market. Both count, because here's the truth. The opposite of aging isn't youth, it's engagement. It's leaning into life, not away from it. So if you're still waking up curious, if you still laugh at dumb jokes, if you still reach out even when no one reaches first, you're stacking the odds in your favor, quietly, powerfully. And let me end this journey by saying, if you've made it this far, listening in the dark, maybe curled up with a blanket, hearing this through your earbuds while the fan hums, you're not alone. You're part of this moment, with me, with everyone else out there trying to live a little longer and a lot better, because science may have the data, but your choices. Write the story, so let's write a good one. And now, as your eyes grow heavier and the room softens around you, just remember, this your age is not your expiration date. It's a beginning disguised as an ending. If you can still move, laugh, love, and listen, then time is still on your side. Let it stretch. Let it breathe. You've made it this far, and that means something. So tonight, rest gently. Let the air be cool. Let your breath slow, and let your body thank you for still caring. I'll be right here next time, whispering truth in the quiet again. End of script. Good night.